Before we start this video, a large thank you to Fernando, ZTH, Z Lucas, Cutulo, David, Murfenstein, Andri, and No Just for their support on Patreon. I hope you guys enjoy the video. And an immense thank you, as always, to Halo Burner for their continued support of the channel this month on Patreon. I hope you enjoy the video. Hello everybody, today we're going to add some feedback to our UI so our player can see what's going on. But first, under Calculate Level Cost, this is under the Player UI Level Up Manager, by the way, I'm just going to make a condition just in case we go out of bounds from this array, just to continue so we don't get an error and not go down and try to increment a cost. This shouldn't happen if you set up all your sliders or have a max level cap, but just in case, better safe than sorry. Now, you could just let your sliders dictate a level cap. But this, again, just to safeguard the array. Or you can optionally check for a total level and prevent advances beyond that. So you can just do an addition of all your total slider values and make sure they never exceed this maximum level. Or you can do what Elden Ring and Souls does and let the max level just be 99 every slider. So if I go into the project here, you can see we have some responsiveness here, but we don't really have a lot. Like there's not a lot of color changes here in the stats. Not a lot of visual feedback. And visual feedback is pretty important and it's really enjoyed by people. So it is something that you should probably think about adding in as much as you can in UI. There's nothing better than a very simple to understand UI. So I'm going to make a private void here called change text colors depending on the costs. And this will do basically red if your stat is higher than the current stat or your project stat is, but you can't afford it. So basically if you have like say 18 vigor and you try to level 20 but you can't afford it, it will turn the vigor stat red. It will turn it blue if you can afford it and it's higher. It will turn it white if it is the same. Now optionally you can turn all stats red if you can't afford a level up. You can just change everything to red. Just as long as you have some visual feedback, it's very important and it makes the player just kind of pick up on what's happening very easily. So what might be common sense to you might not be common sense to anybody else, especially someone who's new to the genre or the game in general. So this stuff really helps. And if you do know it, it still just looks nice. So let's do an int for projected vigor. And we just get that by getting our vigor slider.value. And then let's do the same thing with all of our stats. So we're going to get our projected mine level from the mine slider, and then our projected endurance level from the endurance slider. And through the magic of editing, that seems to be the phrase for the last few weeks, I'm going to skip ahead and save you and me some time, or you some time rather. Here are all the stats on the screen. Let's also grab our player from the Player UI Manager. I'm just typing in player so I can write it shorthand. You don't need to do this. I just like doing it because it makes the code more legible, readable. So we're going to do a check here. We could say if the total level up cost is less than or equal to our runes, then we know we can afford it. So if it is equal to or less than what we have currently, hey, this is good. We can afford the level up, so we can change the text fields to something like white or blue if you have it higher. Otherwise, we can't afford it. The text fields are going to be white or red. So if you tried to level up vigor and you have it higher than your current stat, but you can't afford the runes, their projected vigor level stat will turn red. So we check the total cost against our player's runes. And we'll just do vigor first as an example to make sure this works in the project window. So we can say if projected vigor level is greater than our player.player network manager.vigor stat .value. I have to say .value because it's a network variable. Then cool, if we can't afford it, we can change the text, the vigor text, projected vigor text to blue. Now you can pick whatever color you want. If you want to, you could even set up a color on some like static world utility manager and you could make it a color for positive and then a color for negative. But I'm just going to use blue for positive and red for negative because I believe that's what Elden Ring and Dark Souls uses, and it's what I'm using in Nephilim as well. So just because I'm using a basic color, I can say projected color is equal to color.blue. And this will get the Unity's definition of color blue for you. You do the same thing with color.red and color.white, but again, if you have different UI themes going on, I encourage you to make your own colors and reference your color directly. So we're going to say projected vigor is going to be blue here if we can afford it. Otherwise, it's going to be white if it's not higher than the normal stat. And down here it'll be red, and otherwise .white. Whoops, I put red up here. I'm getting ahead of myself. White. So again, if the stat is the same and not higher, it's going to be white. And if it's higher and you can afford it, it will be blue. If it's higher and you can't afford it, it will be red. This is just visual feedback indicating, hey, you're going to get something different if you change it, and here's whether you can afford it or not. So I'm just going to put some comments here so it is very clear. And I encourage you to always be commenting your code. So at first glance, it's easy to see when you come back from this months from now because you very likely will. And now we call this every single time we change a slider. Thankfully, we got one master function for that, so we can just come in here and right at the bottom, boom, there we go. All right, now, before we get ahead of ourselves, let's make sure this is working. So I will comment on this now. It changes projected stat color, or I'll say stats text colors to reflect the feedback. So it's going to be depending on if we can afford it or not. And that is a very straightforward comment, very easy to understand. Now, let's go in here, and what we can do as well is we can check for the total level up cost. And basically, if the total level up cost is greater than 0, well, we can change some other stuff to different colors. So if your total level up cost is greater than 0, then your ruins needed text could be red if you want it to be, or you could only change that to red if you can't afford it. That one's entirely up to you. So otherwise, you could say it's white. So a lot of this will come down to what you prefer, unless you're copying Elden Ring directly, in which case then you can just look at Elden Ring. So again, you put it down here also. It actually makes more sense. Let's go down here. So if you want to go that route, then if you can afford it, it's going to be white. And if you can't afford it, it'll be red. So let's save it. Go into the scene here now. And if I change my vigor stat, boom, we can see we can't afford it. The vigor turns red. The ruins needed is red, and the ruins held is red, obviously. So that is some feedback. If I put it back to 15, it changes to white, and nothing is different. All right, cool. So what happens if I can afford it? Well, we would need to add some ruins to our characters. Let's do that real fast. Just go down here, boom, add like, let's say 50,000. And let's get out of this menu for a sec, go back into it, level up. Boom, there we go, it turns blue. All right, cool. Looks very cool. So we could copy and paste this for every stat. I can't remember if it's called dry, but there's a thing in programming where you want to not repeat stuff as much as possible. So instead of repeating this with an if statement, let's make a function to do it for us. Private void change text field to specified or specific color based on stat. So let's pass require a text field, and let's call this text field. Let's require two stats. 2 ints, one for our current stat and one for our projected stat. And we're going to require a player to in a moment. But first, let's just go in here. Let's copy everything we've written so far with this total cost business right up to the point where we have our stats. So all this stuff in here and paste it, because isn't this just ultimately a text field variable with 2 stats, your current stat and your projected, and of course the player. So we'll put that in there too. But that's all this really is, right? So we can change the text field here, which will be our projected vigor text, to the text field. Do the same thing down here, and just bear with me. I'm sure most of you know where this is going. So this is just a text field, right? And we're really just comparing our stat with our projected stat, right? This is it. And the same thing down here. So this is our projected stat, and then this one over here is our stat. So now if we were to save this, now instead of calling that, all we gotta do is call this function once for every time that we have a stat. So change colors depending on costs, and whoops, wrong function, sorry, it's change text fields, specific colors depending on cost. We pass the player, and then we pass our text field. So the first one's vigor. We pass our stat. So the first one is our player.playerNetworkManager.vigor.value. Then we pass our projected stat, and the first one is our projected vigor level, which we just calculated using the slider. And now we just do the same thing here with all of our stats. So we would copy this again and do it with mind, changing vigor level text to mind level text, changing vigor to mind, and changing projected vigor to projected mind. And then, of course, again, with endurance, changing vigor, if we copy and paste it, to endurance, vigor to endurance, and then our projected vigor level becomes projected endurance level. And then, of course, through the magic of editing, I will cut. There we go. And now this just saves us a lot of space, and we have to copy and paste, an if statement 7 or 8 times. So it just looks a lot nicer. Now inside here, we can kind of take out this whole ruins cost if you want. You can keep it there if you want. I'm not going to call it several times. I'll just put it right before or right after. Optionally, we call these specific stat changes. So I'll say if the total level up cost is less than or equal to ruins, then our ruins needed color will be white. Otherwise, we're going to change it to red. And again, some of this is just my preference. You can choose to change this to red all the time if you want, because you're always losing ruins and a cost. It's entirely up to you. Now, we need to get our projected player level next. We can do that by copying this up here. And we need to get our current player level, because we're also going to change the projected player level text field color. So we can say int projected player level is equal to, and we do this by creating, or rather using that function we created a while ago to get our player's projected level from the character stats manager. And we pass true because we are using the projected sliders. And then we're going to say if projected player level is greater than player level, which we don't have yet, we can get that too. So we could say int player level is equal to, and we do the same thing, but we don't call true. Remember, we made this to say that if we pass true, we're using our projected sliders and not our actual attributes. So if it is greater than our player level and we can afford it, well, we should turn this to blue because that's our positive color indicating a positive change. And if we can't afford it, we should change it to red. So I'm going to put these variables up here out of the if statement because we're going to use them in both the if and the else statement below. And putting them up here lets me do that. So we're going to say projected player level text dot color is going to be equal to, do we even have that? It's called projected character level text. That's my bad. I forgot the name of it. All right, come down here and paste that. And then we're going to say the color down here is going to be equal to blue. And likewise, as I just said, if you cannot afford it, it will be equal to red. So you can put that down here. I'm going to use a short-handed if statement here because it looks a bit neater, just like that. There we go. Color is equal to dot red. All right, cool. Great. All right. So we can save that now. And we can also actually do a check and say, if it's equal to the player level, it should be white. Just in case you level up, reopen the menu, it should change back. All right. The best way to do this, by the way, guys, is to constantly test it. Constantly, because you might think you have everything, but you test it and realize you forgot a single color or something, so we're going to test a lot. We're also going to change the projected ruins held color to red, so we're not going to use shorthand because we need to put another statement in here. And we're going to do down here the projected ruins color is going to be white if the player level is the same. Basically, we know that if your projected player level is higher than your player level, you have to spend ruins, so your projected ruins will be less than your current ruins. So, and if it's the same, you know you're not spending ruins. You could compare the cost of ruins if you want, but it's just easier to compare the player level since we already have it as a calculation. I hope that makes sense. So let's go down here to ruins, and let's add some, go to our player, and let's level up, and I have messed up because I am changing the player stat and not the projected stat, even though I just said it to myself out loud. So yeah, down here under change text color depending on cost, you probably didn't make this mistake. I did. So our stat becomes projected stat text, not our regular stat text. Let's add ruins and try that again. That's why you should always test. If I go in here again now and open up the level up menu, we can see here, there we go, cool, working as intended. So the ruins needed text optionally should only turn red if you exceed the cost, and boom, yes, there it is. All right, cool, that looks good. That's some great feedback. So we can add in this more though. I messed up here, and this should be stat is, if projected stat is greater than stat, it turns red, because you can see here mine didn't turn red because I referenced my stat to my projected stat backwards. And there we go. Now it turns red when I go and exceed the cost. So that was cool. That's a lot of visual feedback. It's a lot better. It's clear what's going on, at least to me. And that just looks nice overall. So we can do some more things though. We can make some more add-ons to this. We don't actually save our stats currently. We don't actually save our ruins currently. We covered player saving a long time ago, so a lot of you have probably already done that. But I'm going to do it just in case. I'm going to add the stats that we just got and our ruins to our character save data, and we're going to save that. So let's go to the player manager and the character save data. I am going to come down to the player save data and add all of our new stats. So I'm just going to copy and paste and turn this a bunch of times until I got the number of stats that I have in game. I'm going to type in strength, I'm going to type in dexterity, and then I'm going to cut, and there we go. There it all is. Save that. Now under save game data to current character data, what you want to do, obviously you've done this before, we have the 3 other stats there. Let's go ahead and just put those in just like we have before. So we have strength, and that's going to be equated to our player network manager.strength.value. And then we can do our dexterity. Oh, autofill is not working for me today. It does not want to put in the right variable, and it just tried to do it twice to me by switching around their order. Okay, strength, dexterity, and then I'm going to copy and paste this a bunch of times for my intelligence and faith too. And then through the magic of editing, I'm going to do a cut. There we go. Save that, go down to load game, same thing, but reverse. When we load it, we're going to take it from our current character data and assign it to our player network manager. There we go. Strength, dexterity is equal to current character data and whatever. I'm going to do a cut. There we go. And let's go over to our player UI level up manager. We have to do another thing here. We have to, on our confirm levels, call this or save this, the game rather, because we want to save after we've confirmed our character's levels. So save the game after setting your levels or stats. And let's go over to the interactable. And optionally, you might want to save and interact with things. FromSoft does this too with a lot of them. You can make a bool here and say save when interacting and toggle it if you want, but I'm going to save after every interaction because interactions are a host thing only for opening doors and kind of messing with the world state. So I will save it here as well. So save game after interacting, save that. And now let's go over and actually create comments over here for stats. And I'm also going to add in our ruins. So we can say player stats manager dot ruins is equal to current character data dot ruins, which doesn't exist. So let's add that as an int. You can put in stats or resources wherever you want. You give it its own header. I'm just going to throw it in resources here for now. So public int ruins. And then the same thing is true on save game, but in reverse, where we set the current character data dot ruins to player stats manager dot ruins. So I'm going to throw in my comment here too for stats. Try to keep it spaced out and looking nice if I can. Current character data dot ruins is equal to player network manager. Player stats manager. It's not a network variable. Dot ruins. Okay, save that. Now if we go in game, you can see I have 5,000 runes, or I'm going to add 5,000 runes to my character, and I'm going to save the game. If I load back into the game though, you can see it is 0. Why is that? But I have 5,000 in my player stats manager. Well, remember we made a function update our UI, so you could do this two ways. You could call the UI update manually by saying player UI manager.instance .hudmanager.set ruins count, and you could say 5,000. Or rather, you could pass the ruins that you saved. Or, optionally, and much easier, you could just call the function playerstatsmanager.addRuins and pass your total ruins amount. Now, if it bothers you that it does that whole thing like you got the ruins as a drop, or it adds it after a time, you could just make a new function to just do it from save and add it instantly to your UI, because you can see here it says plus 5,000, and it adds up after a while. All right, let's go back into the level up manager. And you can see here that I've leveled up previously. I've come back to the menu and these stats are still blue. So we should go back to change text field to specific color based on stat. What we do is we just compare the stat and we say if the projected stat is the same as the stat, we change the text field to white. This makes it so like if you just level up, come back in the menu, they were blue before, but because there's no condition to change it back to white, it stays the same blue color. This is why you test things over and over again. This is something I definitely would have missed had I not popped back into the game every time I've made a change. And if we confirm the level up here now, so let's just level these stats up. And if I go down to confirm, they're still blue. This is because we also only call this when a stat is changed. So now we have to call this when we confirm the stats as well. So call this change text colors depending on your stats, not only when you're changing your slider, an update slider, but also when you're confirming your stats. And this will change the values to the colors they're supposed to be. So now let's just test it again, make sure we didn't miss anything. Go in the game, level up, and if I level up the stat here, okay, cool, and I do confirm, boom, yes, but we forgot about our ruins needed, it's still red. So one last time, let's go under here and go to change our text field colors, and we're gonna say, if our player level is the same as projected level, then our ruins needed cost must be 0, so the color must be white. And that should be good. If any of you guys find anything else here outside the video, please just let me know, and I will address it, because it's possible I could have missed something else. So I'm going to say ruins needed text.color is equal to color.white. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you all have a very, very lovely weekend. As always, an immense thank you to my patrons. It is because of you all this series continues to exist. Thank you to everyone who takes the time to like and comment on the video. You have my sincerest gratitude and sincerest appreciation. I will see you guys next week.